What's up? This is Gino J, the Construction King. We are on site right here in Atlanta. Just finished up our pop-up. This pop-up was free. We had a lot of people in person, a lot of people on Zoom, and just talking to people about how to get started in real estate development and why community is important.
This is our second pop-up 2025. It was a huge success. Thank you for everyone that came out. And I mean, right here, city of Atlanta, still educating people, still trying to drop these knowledge bombs on everybody. Don't know my love. Those that don't know me, my name is Kelly Parker. I go by KT the Builder. And this is my partner, Gene. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, welcome everybody in person and everybody on the Zoom. There's a bunch of people on the Zoom call. Appreciate y'all tuning in virtually. We like to do these pop-ups like once a month, sometimes twice a month, just so you guys can come out, ask us questions, and just see some of the projects that we're doing. This house that we're standing in right now is obviously a new construction from the ground up. It was a tear down, and we built it back. Timeline has been relatively good. We started framing September 10th, and we probably got another couple weeks of work. Not even that. Like on the outside, we got 1 day of grading. We got 1 day for the driveway, and we got 1 day for landscaping. So 3-4 days of work on the outside. Inside, we probably have 3 or 4 days left on the inside. Obviously we got a bunch of touch-ups. Some of the challenges that you have in new construction, it varies. Sometimes it varies on location. Like this property, I'll talk about some of the challenges that we had. Anytime you're building in the city, it's a lot different than building on the outskirts. Number one, permitting. So wherever you're trying to build and develop, you have to think about where or some of the timelines. So it's up to you guys to go down to the county and ask some of these questions as it relates to the process and the time frame. It took us 9 months to get the permits right here in Atlanta. One of the reasons it took so long is because a lot of these cities have recompense in tree ordinance. Like, I would love to cut that tree down. That's by that window. There's another small tree. We fought for 3 months to cut that tree down. They still said no. So we said, you know what, we're just gonna have to deal with the tree there and decide to cut it down on the back end. I just have to, pay that $4,000 or $5,000 fine and make that decision when we cross this point. I don't know, you probably didn't see it, but we've had some break-ins on this property. You deal with that in the city of Atlanta. When we first started the project, luckily we didn't have any lumber stolen, but we had, some break-ins. Like they broke the window, like last week ago, and we got a new window coming in. When we were in rough, we had somebody cut the electrical and steal the line set in the property. Luckily, they just stole the line set and they only cut the electrical for the HVAC, so it wasn't too much damage. Maybe it set us back about $600 in about a week of time frame. That's why we have the fence around the property. We got cameras, but you know how cameras are. I mean, they'll look at the camera and still take the stuff.
And how much did the land cost? How much per square foot did it cost to build this house?
All right, we're gonna jump right into that because I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions in person. And we got one more that's signing in, but we'll let her introduce herself later. I'm gonna let Jean go over all the numbers on this property, but I know you guys have questions pertaining to numbers. Everything varies based on the location, right? It's not solely the process that dictates what you're gonna be spending to actually build a structure. You need to know who's buying in that location, what the houses are selling for in that location, what finishes they have in that location when you first find the location. So when all my realtors say location, 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 that's what they mean. They don't specifically mean the house, the location dictates the sale price of the house. No, it's the finishes. It's who's moving to that area, what's coming to that area. All these things are very important because if we put this house, in Buckhead, we would probably put different finishes in here, right? We would probably demand more money. So it's not specifically what we put in the house solely, it's the location, the amenities close to it, and who's moving to that area. Like I've been an agent, I like saying over a decade, but it's really to you. I've been an agent over a decade, And that's one of the key factors that I found out while being an agent. I was at KW Atlanta Partners. I was at KW Clarn in Tallahassee. And now I'm with In-House Realty down in McDonough Stockbridge area, Eagles Landing. So at the end of the day, one of the most important things you guys need to understand when looking for land, and not just coming up with a price per square foot, but what the houses are selling for, who's moving to that area, etc. Because if we tell you it take 135 square foot to build this house, but you want to put this house in an area where houses are selling for 150 a square foot, it's probably not going to work, right? So you're going to want to take whatever you can as far as the finishes that's in this place and duplicate them for the least amount of money as possible when you're in areas where you can't demand a high dollar. We're in Atlanta, we're lucky. We got all of it. We got the cheaper areas, and then we got the most expensive areas. Some of our callers may be, not so lucky to be in a metro area such as Atlanta. So the price per square foot we built this house for, we can go to Florida and build it a lot cheaper. So just understanding where you're building, and then you can get into that price per square foot.
So as you're thinking about getting into new construction, obviously your location is important, and there's a lot of due diligence and research that goes into that location. Kelly mentioned some of the things up front, like you want to know what homes are selling for per square foot. One of the rule of thumb that I look for is I don't want to be in an area that's under a minimum of 200 a square foot. Just think about it. Like even on a cookie cutter level, you're going to spend 110, 115, 120 per square foot to build. So if you're in an area and you don't see new construction sales north of 200, there's probably not a lot of room in that market to make a profit. One of the action things that I'll give you guys today, because it's all about who you know and who to contact. Like if you're serious about development, you guys need to be looking for surveyors wherever you're at. All you gotta do is find a lot online. It could be 123 Main Street in, Macon, Georgia. Research the surveyors in that area. Hey, I'm thinking about buying this lot. What do you typically charge for a survey on a lot this size? What's the time frame? What other things do you offer with that survey? I'm thinking about building a new construction home, and what are some of the things the county is going to require me to have on that survey? Because in Atlanta, you're going to have topography. On the outskirts, they may not require topography, but from your standpoint, it may be good to get it so you know where your trees are, you understand the elevations, and it just makes that site plan just more comprehensive when you go to submit for your permits and when you're doing that site work. So that's one action step everybody should take. It's easy. It don't cost you no money. Call a surveyor. Yes, ma'am.
You're speaking in regards of new construction.
Yes.
Some of us don't qualify for it just yet. So how can we build our portfolio? Because right now I only do gut outs. And my hard money lender, I do gut outs and fire. So when it comes to this, how can I qualify for it knowing that part of my portfolio?
You already qualify for it. You just don't know.
Okay.
There are lenders that will lend on new construction. We got students who had no new construction experience that have gotten loans out the gate. It's all about finding that right lender. And if you're doing gut outs, God bless you, because gut outs they're more work than new construction. They're way more work than new construction.
Yeah.
Because you have all these surprises, and I guarantee you, when you gut out a house and you demo it down to the studs, you got wood rot underneath the kitchen, the bathroom, you're replacing floor joists, you got crooked walls, and it's a lot longer process. It takes longer to do a gut out than it does a new construction. So you qualify for it. It's about getting in touch with the right lenders, and we have some lenders that we can put you in contact with.
Great. And one last question. Your formula for your ARV, I know that some people, it depends, right, on the, because conventional versus, FHA. So how do you formulate that formula or methodology to kind of determine?
So sometimes it depends on the market. Right now, the market's a little softer than it was a couple years ago. So a lot of the deals that we're looking at, we want to be in these deals around 60, 68%. You know, obviously if you get it lower, that's good. You know, my max that I want to be in a deal is no more than like 70, maybe 72% max. But it also depends on my exit strategy. Am I keeping that property for rent where I know I can cash flow it and increase the equity? Or am I trying to sell it immediately for a profit, or am I Airbnb-ing it? So that's like the rule of thumb. You know, so even if you took like the 70% rule or the 68% rule, whatever rule you're at, and it, again, depends on the area. If properties are moving a little faster, maybe it's, you know, a little bit more. If properties are moving slower, you gotta take those things into consideration. And then what is your exit strategy on that property? Now, when it comes to land prices vary. You know, sometimes in the city you can pay a little bit more for land because you don't have to build a huge house to get your, you know, to get a high ARV. Sometimes in the outskirts, you know, you're big in builder homes, but the ARV is a lot smaller than you would see in the city. So just a rule of thumb, when I'm looking for land, I always start at that 10% rule. So if I'm researching an area and I've never been in that area and houses are selling for $500,000, in my mind, I need to find a lot around $50,000 for the numbers to make sense. Now, once I look at the square footage, maybe I can go up to 15, 18%. It just varies. But that's just a good rule of thumb in terms of like a starting place when you're looking to kind of identify that land. That makes sense? But this business is complicated, but it's not complicated. To be successful in this business, it comes down to education. That's the number one thing. You know, obviously credit is important, capital is important, but it's all about the education. And anybody that want to be in this business can be successful. One of the other big skills you need is people management skills. This just managing people. Yes, I'm a general contractor, and a lot of times people think of a general contractor, you know, as a person that is actually doing the physical labor on the property. I don't do no physical labor, y'all. I don't do no physical labor. The only thing I do at my house is light bulbs and sometimes doorknobs. Anything outside of that, I'm just not a handy person. I'm just not a handy person. I don't paint, I don't do none of that stuff. I mean, I probably can learn it, but it's not in my wheelhouse. So you gotta think of it as a real estate developer. And what a real estate developer is at a high level is a person that can identify the opportunity, the person that can get the funding for the opportunity, and a person that can manage the general contractor or subcontractors to kind of achieve that end goal. And that's what the developer is at a high level. So you have to know like who to call, why to call those people, and how to navigate through that property. One of the big things that we're components of as we're building our properties are using third-party engineers. Because I'm not an electrician, I'm not a plumber. Yes, I can see certain things and understand, you know, looking at it, that's not right, or maybe the code is not right, but I don't know everything about these different mechanicals. So who's in here ever been burnt by a contractor before? One of the ways to navigate that is how you manage your properties. So when we're doing our new construction, after the site work is done, the first thing after the site work and erosion control is your foundation. You know, you don't know necessarily if the foundation is being done right. You just don't know. So you have what they call a third-party engineer come out and inspect your site. And we're not paying our subcontractors until those sites are inspected. Once the sites are inspected and passed, then obviously we'll pay our contractors and keep moving forward. But we do that throughout the entire process of the house, especially, you know, foundation, anything that has to be inspected. We're relying on our third-party engineers to do those inspections. That gives us peace of mind, that gives us quality control, and ultimately it gives us a better project. Now every county, some counties will accept third-party inspection, like the city of Atlanta. If I just use all third-party inspectors, they will accept all my third-party inspectors as long as the inspectors in their city. Some counties won't accept third-party inspections. But just because that county won't accept third-party inspections, that don't mean you should not still have them. And anytime you do your third-party inspection, you always want to do that before you have the city come out, if the city still needs to sign off on it, Because now when the city comes out and everything's correct, then, you know, they're gonna feel a lot better about who you are as a builder and how you navigate through that property. So it does a lot for you to have those third-party inspectors coming. Any questions on the Zoom? And any questions y'all got, man? I know I talk a lot and I'm just giving y'all knowledge, but we're here for y'all to answer y'all questions.
No, go ahead, because I did.
How do you, because, you know, this stands out. There's nothing like this, whatever, on the block. How are you going to decide to build something like this in this particular neighborhood?
A couple things. Experience and just being in these areas for a while. This house here is unique. I didn't find this lot. This lot just kind of fell on me. And I got a call one day and from a friend. He was like, man, I got my friend, man. He bought this house and he want to renovate it. He looking for somebody to help him renovate it. Man, I'm like, man, let me take a look at it. When I looked at it, and I FaceTimed, I'm like, bro, you cannot renovate this house. It's a teardown. You know, I've done a lot of gut jobs, and the first thing that I saw when I saw this house, it was built on an old pier system, and I already knew it had foundation issues before I even went in it because it was built way back in whenever. And I told him, I'm like, bro, listen, the only way we can make money on this property if we tear it down and go from scratch. You know, ideally, he paid a little bit too much for the property, but he had owned it at that point, so it was like nothing he could do. You know, he paid like $110, he paid cash, and he said, okay, if we build it, worst case scenario, we'll just keep it as Airbnb. Best case scenario, we'll, you know, make a little money and move it on to something else. But he had already purchased this lot. So that's the importance of understanding what you're purchasing and where and what these numbers are. Because I would not have paid $110 for this lot, but it is what it is. And like, how do we make it work? And so we decided to obviously tear the house down and just build something a little bit more contemporary. Like, when it comes to this business, there's a science to it, but there's also an art to it. And you have to know how to balance that. And sometimes that just comes with experience. You know, it just comes with experience. And you'll see sometimes like why people are getting more money because they understand that area and they're tapped in. You know, me and T was looking at a property the other day, and this guy got like $985 on the market in 1 week in this market, but he knows that area and he has that experience in it. Like, I've done a lot of stuff in East Atlanta, I've done a lot of stuff in different pockets, so I have the confidence to go in there and to put a product in there because I understand what buyers are looking for. We do a lot of stuff in McDonough right now. McDonough's a very traditional area, a lot of big box builders, a lot of cookie cutter homes. You know, we built the house down there a couple of years ago. It was more contemporary. The comps were 550, 560, and you know, maybe 600 max. We got 750 because we had the confidence to say, okay, people really want these style of homes. Sometimes people don't know what they want until they see it.
Right.
So, you know, yes, was it a little bit of a risk? Maybe, depending on how you're looking at it. But I look at the potential upside, but we also have extra strategies where we don't mind keeping some of these properties as well. So it's just a combination of a few different things.
Yeah, I guess that's the art part of it.
That's the art. That's the art
Because
part.
it's like building something. I know you can do the comps and stuff around here, but this is a unique.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying, they do a special appraisal or whatever because there's no comps to this.
Yeah, that's why we build differently. Because if you build the same stuff, if you're in an area, like for example, certain parts of Atlanta, especially like Decatur, you see a lot of crafting style homes. Mm-hmm. If you go build the same crafting style home, guess what your value gonna be? The same as the other crafting style homes. You know, we got 20 houses that we built in Atlanta where people are like, how y'all get $100,000 more? Because we built something different. You know, right now that modern contemporary look is in. Our style is more modern, minimalistic, Scandinavian feel. Mm-hmm. And there's just certain things you can do. Like, I'm not ultra modern, like South Florida, where you just come in, you got all tile. That's a different vibe. You know, we do some modern elements where we might slant the roof lines, do different things. But we also want some traditional elements like wood floors to have that soft look. Some of the certain fixtures we put, some of the color schemes, but it's just understanding that recipe, you know, because 125 a square foot just to go build a house, if you don't have the other side of the equation in terms of what you put in that house, you still may not make money or hit your goals. So you have to understand your end buyer and what buyers are looking for those properties and what demographics of people are coming in those neighborhoods. Like I wouldn't go down to like, you know, in the middle of the country and build a modern house. You know, it's probably gonna shrink my buyer pool. You know, so I'm looking at what the end buyers are looking for and how do we, you know, add a different element that would, you know, pair nice with that house to make it, you know, either better or nicer than the competition, you know.
I guess the last part, like, so how do you know whether or not it's something that's trending? Like, you know how they had farmhouse was a big thing, when to get in and when to get out, like with a certain style. Farmhouse, now is a lot of these modern structures coming in between.
It depends on the area and the location and your end buyers. And sometimes, like, if I'm in an area, we'll get a lot of feedback from certain realtors that are in that area. Because realtors are the ones that have boots on the ground that kind of understand, like, what buyers are looking for. Like, right now, I know for a fact, in most of your major metropolitan cities, especially in the South, if you build a nice, like, transitional type home that is different from, like, a D.R. Horton type home, people are going to gravitate to that more than your traditional stuff. Because the world is getting smaller because people see stuff on Instagram, people see stuff online, and you got to make your product unique. It's your product and your brand that stands behind that stuff. So you got to have that element of understanding like what people want, and then be able to incorporate some of that stuff into your home.